What's up, my friends? Welcome for another video. Joe, is that a new shirt? I like it. I like a shirt. Candace, you do something different with your hair, didn't you? I feel like there's something different about your hair. Not sure what it is, but I like it. I like it. Anyways, welcome guys. Welcome to another video. And this one, kind of like a back in my day kind of video type of thing, I guess, kind of in a way, but also explaining some things that were definitely different, like when I joined the Army. I joined the Army in the early 2000s, and things changed over the years, of course, right? And I kind of want to explain some things as far as what was different back in the early 2000s compared to current day Army. Of course, if you're new here and you're not currently subscribed to this channel, I got this goal of trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and maybe you can be a part of this revolution and help me get there and help me get to that goal of 100,000 subscribers in the year 2021. And maybe you're watching this in the future and I'm already past that, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed kind of a thing. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it, shall we? I've got about 5 things, and a bonus probably thing, I guess, too, but 5 things that I really kind of thought about, and I was like, what was different? What was kind of some big changes when I joined the Army compared to what it's like now? Now, of course, if you don't know, you're not familiar, I'm no longer in the Army, but I still work with the Army. I train soldiers for a day job, so I'm around the Army all the time still. I went to basic training in late 1999. By the time I went to my very first unit, that was already in the 2000s. So early 2000s, and then I got out in a little after 2010. One thing I always really remember that really stands out as far as what was different back then compared to now is it was really easy to get on post back then. This was for at least like the first couple of years while I was in the Army. When I first came in the Army, if you wanted to go on base, just drove on base. Nobody was there to stop you, nothing stopping you. They didn't have any gate guards, they didn't have to check ID. You just drove on that installation and boom, you're on base. There are certain installations that probably had security to it, but your most common, your major installations, like I was on Fort Riley, Kansas, did not have anything. And a lot of installations were like this. I remember they were in the process of starting to go to a point where they were going to check people coming on base, but they weren't there yet. So you could just drive simply on base. They, did have restrictions as far as like if you went to the PX, which is like the, the store they had on base and everything like that. And if you wanted to shop there, you had to show ID. But just to get on base, to go visit someone, you didn't get checked, you didn't get stopped. You just could easily just drive on base and go to where you needed to go to. Now, I remember like in late 2000, 2001 timeframe, they were on Fort Riley starting to build this up to where they had gates that were getting installed. We had to get registration stickers for our vehicles. So some old school veterans may remember this, having to have this registration sticker that was like in the lower or upper area of the driver's side window. Sometimes it'd be in the center of the windshield, just kind of depends, I guess, on the installation. But you had this sticker and everybody had to get this sticker, even though we weren't using it all yet, but it was in preparation for they were gonna start locking down the gates and everything like that to make it to where only people that had this sticker could get on base. And if you didn't have a sticker, then you had to get like a vehicle inspection done. Well, 9/11 happened and they immediately went to that policy. That pretty much forced them into it sooner than they probably wanted to. Maybe they kind of wanted to ease into it, but 9/11 happened and they immediately went to closing off base. And if you didn't have, at that time it was really strict on security, so you'd have a military ID, then you couldn't get on base. But eventually starting to kind of relax a little bit to where now you had to have that sticker, and it didn't matter if you had a military ID or driver's license, you could still get on base. As an example, I was dating a girl at the time, and sometimes she would come on base with me, hang out in my barracks room, and then she would go back home, and I would let her take my car, and then she would come back like the next morning, and she'd get on base because she had my car that had the sticker in it, and just show her driver's license at the front gate. Eventually the stickers went away, and then it just went simply to military ID, and so you had to show military ID eventually, and then the stickers just kind of got phased out, and that's what it's like now. So the difference is between early 2000s and I guess in the 90s too, before I was in the Army, you could just drive on base, and then they got to the point with the stickers, and now it's no stickers, you just have to show a government ID. If you don't have government ID, then you have to get vehicle inspection done. Another thing that was a big change that some of my old school veterans may remember was shining your boots. When I first came in the Army, that was obviously a thing for about 3 or 4 years, something like that, while I was in the Army. And I remember in basic training, you actually had dedicated time to go and shine your boots. We had an ammo can with our shoe shining kit. That was the thing we had to have, was a shoe shining kit. And you would go down to like the little common area and you would spend a good like half hour or so shining your boots. That was pretty common. Also, sometimes you just spend some free time that you would have in the barracks, in basic training, shining your boots. But nonetheless, you had to maintain really shiny boots. And so you kind of had to learn how to shine your boots. I had no idea how to shine boots prior to the Army. I learned in basic training how to shine boots, and that was the thing I had to do for several years while I was first in the Army. That was like an inspectable thing. You'd go to formation like your regular unit, and they'd be looking at your uniform, looking at your boots, make sure you shined them decently enough, you know. Sometimes people that had really shiny boots sometimes get like a half day off or get some kind of reward or you know, something like that. You know, different units have different kind of things. Some didn't care because it's just basic soldiering type of stuff you had to do, but sometimes that was kind of like a nice little incentive. I remember in Korea, I had gotten a pair of, they were called like chloroform type of boots, where the toe and the heel were like basically like this plasticky kind of material. So all you had to do was take like some Windex to it and wipe it down, and it was automatically shiny. I didn't actually have to use shoe polish or nothing. By regulation, that wasn't authorized, but it wasn't really a strictly enforced thing where I was at in Korea, so I was able to easily get away with it and save a little bit of time and not have to really spend a lot of time shining my shoes. For the first 4 or 5 years while I was in the Army, we had the old BDU uniform before we went to the infamous, horrible digital camouflage pattern. But when we had the BDU uniform, it was very common that you'd get them pressed. You would take them to the dry cleaners, they would starch the crap out of those things to where they could stand up on their own, and it looked pretty sharp. I actually liked those. You know, the BDU uniform wasn't quite as cool, but you know, it'd be cool like the OCP pattern I kind of like a little bit better, but maybe that kind of pattern with that style uniform would be pretty cool nowadays, I feel like, and taking it to the dry cleaners to get that heavy starch, to get everything really flat and with the crease in the sleeves and then the pants and everything. I always thought that looked really sharp. You know, you'd spend about $3 or $5, whatever, drop them off at the dry cleaners, get them back in 2 or 3 days or something like that, depending on like the location. And then you'd have this uniform that probably lasts for maybe a week, maybe 2, just kind of depends on how rough you were on the uniform from the day-to-day work. But you had this super sharp looking uniform in my opinion. Current day uniforms, you can't really do that with. I've seen a couple of people here and there that will kind of do that with uniforms, but technically you can't do that. The starch and the kind of like harshness, I guess, on the uniform is bad for it. And it kind of like makes it to where it's not as flame resistant anymore. I think it also makes it to where it's easier to see like at night with like night vision goggles or something. It kind of throws something off. There's some stuff in the uniform that messes with if you go and you starch the hell out of them like you used to do back in the day. But it'd be kind of cool, like a garrison type of thing. I'm talking about, you don't do this in a combat environment, but when you're just on post, you're not in the field, you're not on a deployment, it was really sharp to have your uniforms like nice and pressed like that with the sweet, cool crease down the sleeves and the pants. I remember being stationed in Korea, and I was a part of the 50th anniversary of the signing of the armistice, because I was at the JSA, the Joint Security Area, right on the border of North and South Korea. So they had this big event going on for the 50th anniversary of the signing of the armistice from the Korean War type of thing. And so me and the other people that were a part of this had to, you know, get our uniform nice and pressed. And my job was to make sure that no tourists tried to run across the border or anything like that. And then of course, you know, it starts raining. So, you know, that $5 pretty much just went to waste, because obviously the rain jacks up that whole crease and nice pressed uniform look, and it was ruined. Now, before we get into a few more things, I'd love to hear down in the comment section from maybe some of you veterans out there, or maybe just people in general, what is your favorite military uniform? It could be a different branch of service, I don't really care. I'd love to hear what is your favorite, maybe even your least favorite uniform, a little bit of both from different branches of the military, maybe the Army, whatever the case is. I actually probably like the current OCP pattern type of uniforms now is probably the best one. Maybe even like the dress uniform for the Marines, I think is really sharp. And probably the worst one, the ACUs. The ACUs sucked. I mean, technically even the current ones are still called the Army Combat Uniform or ACUs, but I'm talking about the digital pattern. The digital pattern, they kind of sucked. Also outside of that, if you want to help me out and feed the YouTube algorithm, because it helps out to get my videos recommended to other people by having that interaction with you guys, I'd love to hear down in the comment section, maybe something you're looking forward to, something coming up this weekend, this week, whatever the case is. Let me know something that's coming up that you're looking forward to. I'm gonna try to reply to a bunch of you guys if I possibly can, so let me know. Another kind of crazy thing that's different nowadays in the Army compared to back in my day in the Army is the barracks. The barracks sucked. In my earlier times in the Army, they were horrible. You don't have barracks like this anymore. If they are, they're more of like a temporary kind of barracks, not your normal, typical, permanent barracks. These barracks were horrible. Let me take you back to my very first barracks room when I first came in the Army, brand new private, showing up at Fort Riley, Kansas, 113 Armor. They're now a Cav unit, I think, but I show up and they assigned me to a room with 2 11 Charlies. Had these 2 mortarmen and me. And the room styles were basically just a square room. That was it. There was no bathroom, no kitchenette, nothing. So you have this room that's probably about, I don't know, maybe like a 20 by 30, I don't know, kind of a good measurement kind of a thing, but you know, okay size for like 1 or 2 people, not a good size for 3 or more people though. So you had these guys that had the room split in half. One guy had one side of the room, and the other guy had the other side of the room, and they kind of split the barracks rooms with wall lockers. And that was pretty common back then. You would kind of have your little bit of privacy by having the wall lockers in the middle of the room, maybe a bed sheet or something like that, or maybe a shower curtain that kind of separated you to where the person that had the window usually had the more privacy because, you know, the other person is by the door, and so the other person has to go back and forth through them. And sometimes you had to get creative with being able to have your own privacy. So is what these guys did was they just gave me somewheres in the middle. So you had one guy had a bunch of room in the opening, the first little area when you first came into that room, and then another guy who had a lot of room on the opposite side. And me sandwiched in the middle of those two guys between wall lockers where there was only enough space for me to have my bed, walking space to get to my bed, and be able to open up my wall lockers, and that was it. So I had probably like a 12 foot by like 4 foot area. So it was long because you had the bed and everything like that, but only like a little 2 foot, maybe like walking area, 3 foot walking area to kind of get through. It was horrible. And a lot of my barracks room were similar to that. I mean, I eventually got more space than that, but they had a very similar layout where it was just an open room and then you had to go down the hallway to use the bathroom and the showers. Horrible layout, but that's how it was back in those days. It started to get a little bit better where maybe you would have a big open room with maybe a bathroom inside of it, and you had to share it still with like 2 or 3 people, but it was horrible. Super horrible for back in the days, but you know, nowadays barracks are a lot better. They're more like a 2-bedroom apartment that just doesn't have a living room. Another thing was the PT uniform. When I first came in the Army for the first 2 or 3 years, 4 years, something like that, of being in the Army, we had really horrible, in my opinion, uniforms for physical fitness. So they were this kind of, you know, of a shirt. Actually, it looked pretty much just like this. This one has the reflective thing on the back, which they later went to, but that first version that I had didn't have the reflective thing on it, so it was just plain on the back. And then the shorts were the same kind of color, like this grayish kind of color. And that was the summer physical fitness uniform, and that was okay, not too big of a deal. It was the winter version that was horrible. The winter version, you had sweatpants. They were like cotton sweatpants or whatever, and they were like an off-white. So 1, they're being cotton, so if it rains or whatever, it's just soaking up all this water. But 2, they're this off-white kind of colors, so grass stains. Grass stains would tear those things apart very easily. You're doing physical fitness in these things and you're getting grass stains all over the knees, all over the legs, whatever the case was. The other thing with that uniform was it had a zip-up kind of hoodie type of thing, and the hoodie is an important part that I'll talk about as well. This was the same color as like this off-white type of thing. It had these little pockets in the front that you weren't allowed to use, so it was like pointless. Can't put your hands in your pockets. You could kind of put your like car keys, your wallet inside of it maybe, and I mean, you didn't have zippers or anything to keep it, you know, secured, so it could easily fall out possibly, so you had to kind of watch out for that. But you had these pockets and you couldn't stick your hands in your pockets to keep them warm. Then you had that damn hood thing, and at least my first unit in Fort Riley, right, we weren't allowed to wear the hood, so it was pointless. It was like, why on earth do we have this damn hood if I can never have it up? I can never wear this stupid hood. I don't know if there's other units that allowed people to wear hoods, but where I was at in Fort Riley, they didn't ever let us wear the hood, so it was just a thing that was there mocking us all this time of like, hey, you can be a little bit warmer by putting the hood up, especially when it's raining or snowing, but your leadership's gonna yell at you for having the hood up. The Army physical fitness uniform now is a lot better. I like the black, you know, you don't see any stains probably on it, you know, and I like the colors and everything like that, the scheme of the physical fitness uniform, especially with the pants and the jacket and everything being more of like a water resistant type of, you know, type of material to where the water will run off of it instead of just absorbing into it like it was. So that first kind of version of the physical fitness uniform in those early 2000s that I had before we went to, you know, the more water resistant type of, you know, design and type of uniform, those first ones were horrible. So one last kind of like little bonus kind of thing that I wanted to kind of mention, I was kind of making this like 5, you know, things that were kind of different back in the early 2000s compared to today's Army, but this is kind of like a 6, so it's kind of like a bonus one we'll consider, I guess. That is the Army slogan, right? The Army slogan changed a couple times when I was in the Army. When I first came in the Army, it's the one that you've heard from the old school days of be all you can be. When I first joined the Army, that was the motto. It was be all you can be. That only lasted for a year and a half, maybe, and I don't even think quite 2 years from while I was in the Army before they changed to a different slogan that didn't even last very long either. That slogan was Army of One, and that only lasted maybe I think 2-3 years, something like that. the main thing I remember people would always kind of criticize about that slogan, and I think maybe one of the reasons why they kind of eventually went away from it was that, you know, Army of One. It was supposed to be like that we're all one team, one fight and everything like that, so we're an army of one. Well, the way a lot of people would take that was that I'm an individual, so I'm an army of one. I don't need you guys, I don't need a battle buddy, nothing. I am an army of one. That was the way a lot of people kind of would joke around taking it. We all knew what the intention of it was. The intention was it to be one team, one fight, army of one. Well, a lot of people used it in a different way though. I don't know if that was like one of the key reasons, but I remember that was possibly one of the reasons why they changed it and eventually went to what it is currently still, which is Army Strong. I still don't even know if I really like that one too much. In my opinion, the first thing I think of when I think of Army Strong is kind of like almost like some ogre Hulk kind of guy, you know, that's not very smart and intelligent, going, ugh, Army Strong. You know, maybe you can't put together a full sentence or something like that. That's always the first thing I think of. It's not what it's supposed to mean, but that's usually the first thing I think of when I think of that motto. It's supposed to be like, you know, there's, you know, someone who's strong and then there's someone who's Army Strong. So it's supposed to be like there's strong and then there's Army Strong, and being Army Strong is, you know, more elite, more higher than someone who's just strong in general. So that's the intention of it. But in my mind, I just always think of some kind of like person that can't put together full sentences saying Army Strong. That is still the Army slogan, right? It hasn't changed, has it? I guess it actually is kind of different. I'm not really keeping up on the slogans, I guess. I guess Army Strong isn't even the current one. Looks like the Army Strong one was actually phased out in maybe like about 2018 time frame. So I guess they updated it in 2018 to Warriors Wanted, and then a little bit later to What's Your Warrior? It's more of like a recruiting type of slogan type of thing. It's different than the This Will Defend type of thing. It's more of like a commercial version of a slogan that I'm talking about. So interesting. I haven't really kept up on the slogans. I actually have a video on my channel here of my basic training, right? When I went through basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, they gave us a VHS that I actually have. It's right there we go, right there. that's the VHS back there. But if you want to see me reacting to that video, I got that available for you right here if you want to check it out. If you want to check out my latest video upload, maybe you haven't seen it, check this guy out right here. Links in the description for social media, all sorts of stuff. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, all that kind of fun things. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.